Canterbury. Welcome to NewsMakers and our penultimate show of the year. I've been waiting 12 months to say that. It's a pleasure to introduce the penultimate panel for the year. The Chairman of Environment Canterbury, Alec Neill, freelance journalist with the NBR, property investor and MG Business, Chris Hutching.
G'day, Mike.
G'day, Chris. And the Artistic Director of the Court Theatre, Ross Gumbley. Very good to see you all. Now, very well.
Good.
Nearly as happy as a cow in mud, particularly if you're in a cubicle in the Mackenzie country. We are going to start with this controversial plan for mass indoor dairy farming. It has startled the nation, and ECAN is giving the punters about another week or so to make a submission on the idea. Why, by the way, Alec, is the submission period so short?
Oh no, the submission period is set by statute, so it's not that it's short at all, but it's been heard by the panel that is hearing water matters that is sitting at the present time. And there's been international interest. Submissions are coming at the rate of some hundreds per day at the moment. Very interesting.
What are you allowed to have an opinion on this?
Of course, I'm not allowed to have an opinion. I'm not allowed an opinion, but I have an opinion.
Right.
But I mean,
what can you share with us?
Well, Jerry Brownlee's been on this television station expressing his views. It would be absolutely wrong of me to, in all seriousness, my personal view is I don't support that type of operation in the Mackenzie country. If it were in Southland, would I have a different view? Possibly might, but there are a range of issues that would cause me to believe that it's not the most appropriate thing for Mackenzie country.
I'll flesh that out with you soon. Chris, your overall impression on this?
Well, why aren't they putting up apartments for cows indoors? Perhaps that might solve a lot of problems. It'd be a much smaller footprint. I think what it brings home, though, is the value of water in an area where land is not very productive. It's cheap, but if they can get that water, then they can truck in the fertilisers and they can make money out of it. I guess what bothers me most, perhaps, is not so much whether it's pasture-fed or stalls, is what's happening to the environment from all the effluent. Now, I believe, from what I've read, regardless of which type of farming they're going to use, some of that effluent does end up on the ground, and the bywash does go into the rivers down there. And these are our pristine glacial lakes, and we don't want a repeat of what's happened in Lake Taupo and Rotorua.
Ross, if you were a cow, would you feel happier knowing you could be indoors for 8 months of the year, plus 12 hours a day for the remaining 4 months of the year, if you were in the Mackenzie?
Well, it depends whether I had a DVD player or not, clearly, Michael.
Yes.
Look, you know, I mean, for heaven's sake, there's a morality issue here, isn't there? I mean, it's a slippery slope when we start going down here, and we've got to think of the life cycle of these cows and how they're treated. Surely, doesn't it come back to that? I mean, look, gentlemen, you sounded so superiorly intelligent to me, and I feel like I have very little to add to this debate. However, I mean, you know, if this goes down the path that we've been down with pig farming, and I mean, can't we make a feature of giving these cows a good lifestyle and then charging more for the organic beef that we're selling? I'm really happy to live this duality of existence of forgetting about, you know, forgetting that meat is murder and enjoying a steak, but also worrying about the life cycle of the cow that came from. And please leave me in that kind of blindness and darkness, because that's where I want to live my life.
That is very good, Ross.
Ross. I mean, I've just been in Australia this week, and everywhere I went, they talked about Angus beef grain-fed. Now, Angus beef grain-fed is on your plate. Grain-fed means that it's been fed indoors, grain-fed, just as it is at Ashburton with 5-star grain-fed beef. So, I mean, they do exist already. The real question is, what effect might it have on the environment? That's the issue that Environment Canterbury will be faced with through its commissioners. Is there a effect greater than minor?
The applicants say the indoor setting will make it a lot easier to manage the 2 million litres of daily effluent. Man, that's a lot. 2 million litres a day from this operation. The reason I cite this, Alec, is because ECAN has just released its latest dairy report, and it probably won't surprise many people to learn that once again, breaches are on the up.
No, improved or more breaches by something like 0.4%. The actual major breaches are slightly down from about 19% to close to 18%, but that's not adequate either. Dairy farmers and dairy companies have to do better.
But we hear this every year,
Yes,
don't we?
we do.
When are we
We
actually
do.
going to see some dairy farms shut down by UCAN?
Well, let's start to be reasonable about this, and I want to be reasonable because otherwise Ross will attack me and tell me I'm boring, which is true.
No, you're not boring. I just haven't got a clue what you're saying.
Nor have I. We have more pollutants going into the rivers of Christchurch, particularly the Heathcote, than we do going into any of the other rivers in which farming activity is taking place. And yet we blindly turn a blind eye to the Heathcote River, filled with an industry pollution, and put all blame on all matters onto dairy farming. That's a little unfair. The fact is there is some pollution from dairy farming, but at least the dairy farmers and the dairy companies are taking a very serious view on it. If we had
hear them say that every year as well.
If we had a particular report on industry in the Heathcote, you would be frightened out of your boots, but no one wants to know about it.
Chris.
Look, I can't have too much faith in this industry. Now, one of these applicants who wants to set up these cubicle cow farms, as I understand, had 3 convictions, one of them quite a significant one. Now, what faith can we have that this guy is going to play the game from here on in? I mean, these things just happen with monotonous regularity, and they say they're going to set up these sumps to hold the stuff. I can just see the day unusual rain event, you know, washes away millions and squillions of effluent down into the Pukaki River. I just haven't really got much faith in them, and I think the report that you're talking about underlies that.
All right.
Well, let's be honest that if the Christchurch City's sewage system overflows due to the same flooding issues, it flows into our 2 Christchurch rivers, and it is allowed to do so under permit.
Would you like to make a comment, Mr. Gumbley?
Yeah, I'd just like to state, Michael, have absolutely nothing to add to this.
Are you sure about
However, this is possibly the feistiest newsmakers I think I've ever been on. We're also kind of nice to each other, but I'm rather looking forward to this next half hour.
Fabulous. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll recharge our glasses of fine Canterbury water, brought to you by the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, and we'll be back with more topics shortly. Do stay with us.